Hey everybody, welcome back to the Key to an Online Paddle School. We are back here on YouTube, and this week we're spending some time looking at the relationship of our movement with the paddle to make it more of a pushing movement. Pushing into the paddle stroke unlocks our body's movements to a maximum in the easiest way possible. It allows us to connect conceptually and literally with the stroke in a way that gives us the most amount of force. We're gonna break down exactly what we're looking for and how the paddle moves through space and how we end up powering. When we look at any competent paddle stroke, the paddle is going to start at a positive angle and it is going to travel to a negative angle in order to propel the vessel forward. And this is true with any water sport that is using a tool to propel yourself through it. When we look at rowing, the oar starts behind the user and it moves all the way in front, right? We have this big sweeping motion that happens to the side. We are taking that angle and just moving it from in front of us to behind us in this vertical axis instead of back to front on a horizontal axis. So all those concepts are the exact same, right? We're just changing the approach. Again, a rowing shell has oar locks, a sliding seat. It has a lot of tools and pieces of machinery that allow you to power the motion differently. As we go through a paddle stroke, we are the machine. I don't get to put my paddle into a sophisticated lock mechanism and my seat doesn't move around, right? I have to become all of these different leverage points. So in the most basic way, when we look at the paddle going from positive to negative, what happens is that the handle comes forward as the blade comes towards me, right? We have a pushing and a pulling mechanism that allows the paddle to travel like so. In all dynamic motion, there are going to be circular motions that create power, right? When we use our hips and our legs, we're creating this circle in front of us this way to power a mechanism going in this way, in what is relatively half of a circle. Knowing that the tool is going to go through this very specific pathing, now when we engage with the tool, we have a better understanding of what we're trying to do in order to power that motion more effectively. So this also rules out pulling with both hands through a stroke. It is not possible to put a blade into the water in this orientation and to pull with both hands to keep it in this orientation. The paddle is always going to naturally go from positive to negative. If you try to keep the paddle neutral the entire time, you can physically do it, but you end up paddling like this. Now that being said, within the dragon boat world especially, there are thousands and thousands of racers that paddle in some sort of an orientation like this, where they are constantly pulling with both their elbows in this movement pattern in order to keep the paddle neutral. But if you spend any time paddling with somebody that is competent in moving a paddle craft, that fiction of movement is not a reality when it comes to sports performance. Especially in the seated position, we cannot move enough joints in order to create this motion with the paddle. If we're kneeling or standing, there is a moment that we can physically do this because our hips have more range of motion. Ultimately, even in a kneeling position, the paddle is going to go in positive and the paddle is going to leave negative. And if you have a hard time understanding that, spend some time here on the YouTube channel, sign up for the online school. There's a lot of media that dispels paddling like this. So now that we have that out of the way, right? When we go through this motion, in a literal sense, we are pulling with the bottom hand, pushing with the top hand, right? This is something that is occurring. But as I said in the start of the video, we want to try and push with both hands. The reason that we don't want to think about the bottom hand pulling is 99.9% of users, in order to pull with their bottom hand, do this. And this is an incredibly weak range of motion using only your bottom arm. But more importantly, when I pull with my elbow, my hand moves faster than my hips and my shoulders. So my hands get in front of them. What this means is what's powering the blade is not me turning to move it like so, is I pull here, and now when I move my hips and my shoulders, nothing happens to the paddle because I'm already done with the motion. So by pulling with the elbow, you only use your arm, and you pull so fast that now your body and legs don't have time to actually power the stroke. But if you were to pull with your bottom arm, you can get from one position to the next, and you go from positive to negative. You get this length in the water. You're getting all the things that we want with the tool. We're just not powering it as effectively as we can. This is the danger in thinking about it being a pulling sport, is again, people want to pull with this bottom arm way too much. The top hand pushing is very intuitive because as I push, you can see that my top hand and the handle is going to travel forward, and then the blade is going to end up in this negative orientation. So this being a pushing motion is much more intuitive, and it's correct. So how do I push with the bottom hand? So if I set up a stroke and I push with my bottom hand, I can't complete the stroke now, right? I can't do anything with this arm anymore to complete this motion, but you can. This forces you to use your hips and your shoulders in order to finish the stroke. If I push with my bottom arm and keep it perfectly locked out, how do I get to the end of my stroke? I turn my body. And this is the most important distinction in thinking about it being a pushing movement, is by forcing this arm to push down onto the water, it forces you to move your hips and your legs to complete the stroke. So making it a pushing movement, I have to move my hips and my legs. My elbow has not broken at all to get to the end of the stroke. We would want to replace a movement pattern like this with one that looks like this in order to get your entire body engaged with the stroke. So if your bottom arm is thinking about pushing down, it can't bend. Bend is pulling, right? Your hand comes closer to your body as you begin pulling. Pushing is getting your hand away from you. Keeping this force and tension by pushing down on the paddle helps you connect the energy that your shoulders and hips are creating into the paddle itself. So it's pretty slick, right? Two hands can push, but you can still get a pushing relationship with the top hand and a pulling one with the bottom hand because of the success of your body moving. As we've talked about in other videos, right, when we're timing the exit, once you're done with the stroke, you can now bend all these joints and reset the stroke. You can move more freely in the air since there's no more resistance, but how we move in the water is very particular because there's a lot of force that we're trying to grab. So as you get more adept with the motion and understanding allowing the time for your hips and shoulders to activate within the stroke, your bottom elbow can bend as you are taking the stroke, but you have to be very precise with that timing. If it happens too soon, now my hips and legs moving mean nothing, right? But if it happens too late, now I'm paddling a little bit too robotic. I may be bearing the blade a little too deep into the water. So there is somewhere within the stroke where this elbow can start bending, and there is a synergy between your knees, your hips, your shoulders, and your elbow as you complete these range of motions. For the majority of paddlers, it is perfectly fine to have the bottom arm pushing and straight from the catch to the end of your power phase. There is not that many downsides because the upsides are you've opened up your entire body to complete the stroke. And this goes for the kayak as well, right? As we're going through this stroke, this top hand pushing across and my bottom hand pulling towards me comes from the success of my legs and my hips moving. Keeping the bottom arm pushing down forces you to turn your body in order to move your hand. If you don't move your body, now you can bend your elbow to get to the end of the stroke, and it's inherently weak, right? Thinking about pushing down with both hands forces you to turn your whole body. Thank you all so much for checking out the video, and I hope that's been insightful for you. If you don't believe me that paddlers will put the blade in the water and pull back like this, you will just have to take my word for it, because I don't want to put video of paddlers that paddle like that on this channel and putting them on blast or critiquing them in a personal way. I see this stuff on social media, I mimic it, and you just have to take my word for it. I know there's some people out here that are like, holy crap, that's how I paddle, and there's other paddlers that probably don't think what I'm saying is real. But again, there are thousands and thousands of people that paddle in this incorrect format, and a lot of it just stems from ancient paddling terminology. And these ideas are passed down to somebody that doesn't understand the source material, and it's passed down again and again and again, and you have this 16-link game of telephone, and it's a little convoluted if things are not advanced. advancing and being broken down in a more scientific way. And you'll have entire teams of paddlers that look ridiculous within their motion. And this channel is designed to help people understand some of the errors in the movement and try to make those corrections. Ultimately, I want you to be a better paddler. So again, thank you guys for checking out the channel. Big shout out to our YouTube members. Their name is going to be found here. We're starting to get ahead on these videos, so we were about 2 weeks ahead on this video as well. So if you're a channel member, you got to watch the video 2 weeks early. It's $2.99 a month to sign up. It's only a small perk to get access to the videos a little early, but it is just a small incentive to help you guys help this channel out. If you need more in-depth information or to work with a coach directly, check out the K2NOnlinePaddleSchool.com today. Having a fresh set of eyes look at your motion and help you understand how to reach your goals can be invaluable in your training. If you have serious goals this next season, consider working with the coach directly. If you would like to come to Hernando and paddle, reach out anytime via email found in the description. I have all kinds of paddling vessels that you are welcome to use, and we can work directly to help you understand and learn better technique. If you would like me to come to you and host a small group, a clinic, a camp, whatever it is, if you would like me to be part of it, feel free to reach out anytime. I'm willing to travel the whole world in 2025. Thank you guys again for checking out the channel. Don't forget to subscribe if you have not, and we'll see you all next week for the next paddle tip video.